Hilchis Matami Mishkav Umoshav Perek Shishi. Kfar B'Yanu, the Rambam said already in the beginning of the halachas of Matami Mishkav Umoshav, Shazov v'chaverev, that says the Zov, the Nidin, the Yeledes, is Matamin Mishkav Umoshav Umerkav. And we'll soon see the difference between Mishkav Umoshav and Merkav. Now, V'hamishkav v'hamoshav echadu. Mishkav Umoshav is the same din. They both have the same din. V'lo menama b'teira Mishkav Umoshav, because Sha'amishkav means Haroy l'shchiva, V'hameshav is Haroy l'yeshiva. In other words, be'emes, the same din applies. Say if you were Yoshev on a Mishkav, or you were Sheikhev on a Moshev, they both have the same din. Mishkav and Moshev have the same din. The reason why the Torah divides Mishkav and Moshev to include, because in order to be Mitam Mishkav and Moshev, it has to be something which is Royal Moshev, Royal Shchiva. So the Torah is saying, say something which is Royal Moshev, say something which is Royal Shchiva, are all included in Tumas Mishkav and Moshev. How does the Tumah occur? So if a person, of the Zov v'chaveirav sit or lie on a Mishkav Umoshav, they become tummy. They become tummy. Shamishkav haroy l'shchiva, v'hameshav haroy l'yeshiva, ben sheyoshev al hamishkav, v'sheshachav al hameshav. Either way, timo. Lefichach ani yemer b'chol makam mishkav levad v'uadin l'meshav. So when the Rambam is going to use the word mishkav, we have to know that the word mishkav doesn't necessarily mean mishkav. It means meshav. It's nachamol. There's a din called mishkav azov and meshav azov, and they both have the same exact din. If you sit on a mishkav, or you sit on a meshav, or if you lie on a mishkav, or you lie on a meshav, either way, it has a din of mishkav and meshav, and it becomes an avatuma, as we'll soon learn. That's mishkav and meshav. Mishkav and meshav is echadu. And now there's a din of merkav. Ezo merkav. Zeharoy l'rchiva. Kigei mardas hachamer. V'tapei tanasus. In other words, the saddle that you put onto a sus, or something you put onto a chamer, in order to ride on it. So these are considered merkav. That's Shittas HaRambam. Others hold, the Rashi Mashal holds, that if you sit on a merkav, that's also called a meshav. In other words, the fact that you're sitting it while you're riding, it's still a meshav, because we'll soon learn a merkav is more kuladik than a meshav, than a mishkav a meshav. So the Shittas HaRashi is, in order for something to be called a merkav, which is kuladik, is only if you're not actually sitting on it. So why is it called a merkav? It means you're holding on to it. It's something that can be... It's something you're holding on to in order to be able to sit on the sus or the chamer. So that's called a merkav, according to Rashi. Mashenka, what you're actually sitting on while you're riding, is called a meshav. Mashenka, the Rambam holds no, that's b'chalal not called a merkav. That's just touching. That's called a maga. And a maga doesn't become an avatuma. Mishkav and meshav become an avatuma. A maga doesn't become an avatuma. It becomes only a rishon l'tuma. So what's called a merkav? A merkav is when you're sitting on something. You're sitting on something, but you're not sitting on it while it's stationary. You're sitting on it while it's in a riding position. It's moving. So that's called merkav. So b'kitzur, so there's mishkav and meshav, which have the same exact din, just including mishkavis or moshav. And then there's a din of merkav, which is a separate din, which the Rambam didn't yet say there's two dinim. And that would be, merkav would be like mardas hachamer or tapetan of a sus. Halacha beis. Hamishkav v'hamerkav kol echad mehem av mi'ovis hatumah shel Torah. That's a chiddush. We mentioned already a number of times. When a zov touches, a zov or a zava, they touch something, a keli, so that keli becomes a rishon l'tumah. They're an avatumah. When they touch it, it becomes a keli l'tumah. The chiddush is that a mishkav and a merkav, they become an avatumah. So even though they're becoming tummy from an avatumah, they themselves are becoming an avatumah. That's chiddush number one. So hamishkav v'hamerkav kol echad mehem av mi'ovis hatumah shel Torah, mitamin odem v'kelim b'maga, and also mitamin odem b'masa. If a person, the tumas masa is always by a odem. There's no musig of tumas masa by a keli. The whole musig of tumas masa is like mishkav v'hamerkav, when someone's sitting on a keli. So that's a special din. But normally the tumas masa means when a person is carrying the davar atame, so that person becomes tummy. So if you touch the merkav or the meshav, or if a person, if that could be a keli as well, or if a person carries this mishkav merkav, so then this mishkav meshav or merkav, so they're all matame b'masa. Uma b'mishkav lemerkav. So this is mishkav and merkav. Sign mishkav and merkav is matame b'mago b'masa, and they're an av ovis hatumah. Uma b'mishkav lemerkav. So what's the difference? Zazoy. Now there's a musik called tumah b'chiburim. Let's just say the kitzur before that. There's a musik called tumah b'chiburim, which means when a person touches a davar hamatami and avatuma, he becomes a rishon l'tumah. Becomes a rishon l'tumah. Now, if he goes ahead now after he became a rishon l'tumah and touches kalim, So he can't be matame. Rishon l'tumah can't be matame kelim. Now, in certain situations, is when a person is mechuber to the thing that's being matame him. So even though he's becoming a rishon l'tumah, but he also could transmit this tumah to a keli that he's touching. So then that's called tumah b'chiburin. Not always is like that, but there's a musig that a person is becoming tummy from an avatuma, and he's becoming a rishon l'tumah. But while he's becoming a rishon l'tumah, while he's touching the tumah or he's carrying the tumah, so he could transmit this tumah also to a keli, and that keli becomes a rishon l'tumah. So, and that din applies to a Mishkav Umoshav, and as we'll soon see, that it also applies to a Merkav. But by a Merkav, it only applies if you're noisei the Merkav, but not if you're negea b'Merkav. That's the chiluk. Is nachamol. When a person is negea b'Mishkav u b'Umoshav, or even if he's noisei the Mishkav Umoshav, so he becomes a rishon l'tumah, and any godim that he's wearing, that he's touching, or any kelim that he's touching, if it's not a kli cheres, so they also become a rishon l'tumah. That's b'negea Mishkav Umoshav. That's b'negea Mishkav Umoshav. Masha'inkin b'negea Merkav. So by a Mishkav Umoshav, is if he's touching it, and if he's carrying it, so he could transmit this tumah, this rishon l'tumah, to any kelim that he's touching, whether he's wearing it or he's touching it. And wearing it is also, he has to be touching it while he's wearing it. So then he could transmit this tumah. And I'll do it side by maga and side by masa. Mashenke by merkav, when a person is touching the merkav of the zov, so then he taka becomes a rishon l'tumah, but he doesn't transmit this tumah to something he's wearing or something that he's touching. Mashenke, when he's carrying this merkav azov, so then he could transmit the tumah also to something that he's touching, a keli that he's touching or that he's wearing. Let's read again. Mishkav Merkav kol echad mem av me'ovas atumas. Side the Mishkav and side the Merkav are both an av me'ovas atumas. Shel teira. Mitamin odin v'kelim b'maga, and also mitamin sa'odin b'masa. So that in that prat they're both equal. Uma bein Mishkav leMerkav. What's the chiluk? The chiluk is azeh. Shanigeh b'Mishkav. If a person touches the Mishkav azov, im hoya odam. If he was an odam, not a keli, he was an odam. And v'naga b'bgodim or b'shar kelim actually pirish me'metamav. While he was touching the Mishkav Azov, he was touching either b'godim or other kelim before he let go of this touching this Mishkav. Is hareze timon, so those kelim or the b'godim that he's touching become tamei v'asan rishon l'tumah. However, v'anigeh b'merkav, someone that touches a merkav is einei metame b'godim v'lekelim afilu b'shas magoy. Even while he's touching this merkav, and he's also touching other kelim, he's not matame those kelim. That's b'negeya anugeya b'merkav. Aval hanoisei is hamishkav is hamerkav. B'negeya noisei sai of the mishkav and sai of the merkav is areze matame b'godim ushar kelim is matame sai b'godim usar shar kelim b'shas nesiyosei actually pirish me'matamav. In other words, while he's being noisei either the merkav or the moshav, so then he's matame b'godim and kelim which he's touching before he was pirish me'matamav. So that's the chiluk. It's nachamal. But again, Mishkav Umoshav, they both, Sai Mishkav, Sai Meshav, and Sai Merkav all become an avatuma. All become an avatuma. Now the difference is, and Sai Mishkav and Sai Meshav and Sai Merkav, if a person goes ahead and carries them, so he becomes a rishon l'tumah, and he's also metame b'godim b'chiburim. In other words, he's metame the b'godim that he's wearing or the kelim that he's touching. Masha'in kein, if he goes ahead and touches them, so here there's a difference between Mishkav and Umoshav if he touches them. So he's also metame kelim b'chiburim. If he's touching the kelim or he's wearing the begodim, so they become tamei. And Masha'inke by Merkav, by touching, he's not metame those kelim. That's it. Uminayin shebetumas Merkav chiluk magoyim masoy b'Mishkav lechiluk, where we have this mocker that by Mishkav sai maga and sai noisei, by both of them he's metame the kelim that he's touching with the begodim that he's wearing. Mashenke by Mishkav, by Merkav, he's only metame if he's noisei the Merkav, but not if he's touching the Merkav. Minayin shebetumas Merkav chiluk magoyim masoy ub'Mishkav lechiluk. So it's a pasuk shariuema b'Mishkav the ish asher yiga b'Mishkav yechabes godav. So it says clearly if you're yiga b'Mishkav, so it's mechabes godav. You mean you're metame b'godim b'chiburim. Merkav u'ema, it doesn't say yiga. Merkav u'ema v'chol ha-merkav asher yirkev olav v'chol ha-negeh bei asher yeh tachtov yit madarav. It doesn't say that he's metame b'godim. V'li nemer b'yechabes b'godim. Melamed she'ena metame b'godim mishas magoy. So in other words, this begodim that he's touching b'shas magoy, it doesn't say that he is matame. All it says is that he's matame. By Merkav it says v'chol Merkav asher kevalov, v'chol hanegeh b'chol asher tachtov is yitma do'erev. Now malamed she'ein matame begodim b'shas magoy. Aber v'namar v'hanoisi yosim b'negeh noisi it says v'hanoisi yosim yichabes begodov. So and over there it doesn't say dafke noise is a Mishkav. Over there it says Hanoisi Oisem Yichabes Begodav. Echad Hanoisi is a Merkav. Oy Hanoisi Mishkav Metame Begodim B'Shas Nesios. So that's the chiluk. By Merkav it says that when you touch a Merkav, you become Tomei. It doesn't say Metame Begodim. But B'Negei Hanoisi it says B'Negei both. Sai B'Negei Mishkav and Sai B'Negei Merkav there is Metame Begodim. L'tzas Lomad. So comes out Maskona. Hazov V'Hazova. V'Anida V'Yiledes. U'Mishkovan. V'Rukan. U'Meimi Ragleim. V'dam nida, v'zova v'yiledes, and v'zeve shel zov. So all these things again, zov, zova, nida, yiledes, the mishkav of the zov, which includes Moshav, and v'rukan, the rake of the zov, and meimi ragleim, v'dam nida, v'zova v'yiledes, v'zeve shel zov, kol echad mi'elu av, v'odam shenoga be'echad mikolelu einoson, is metami b'godam, u'sh'ar kelim, b'shas negiyosi, b'shas nesiyosi. Someone that touches them, touches the Zov, and while he's touching the Zov, he's also wearing begodim, so the begodim become tummy. So in other words, again, a person that touches a Zov becomes a Rishon L'Tum. And if he goes again then and goes touches begodim, he becomes, they're not tummy. But if while he's touching the Zov, he's touching the Zov, or the Nida, or the Mishkav HaZov, or the Reik, or the Meir Ragleim, the Dam Nida, and while he was touching it, or while he was carrying it, he's touching begodim, so then ushar kem b'shas negoz b'shas nesiyosit they all become an avatuma. Aber ve'eni metame li'odom v'likli cheres. However, he's only metame v'chol keli. In other words, he's yichabes begodim. He has to be yichabes begodim. So when a person is touching any of these things or he's carrying any of these things, so he's metame begodim b'chiburim. He's metame any keli that he's touching, but he's not metame ya'odom. He's not Matame Yodam. That's the first rule. It just says Yichabes Begodim. It doesn't say he's Matame Yodam. Now, once we establish that he's not Matame Yodam, so we have another limud that teaches us that if you're not Matame Yodam, you're not Matame Kli Cheres either. So even though a regular Keli, if he's touching, it does become Tame, but a Kli Cheres doesn't become Tame. That's what he's saying. But Adam Shenogabachim Kalelo Inosam Matame Begodim Ushar Keli B'Shas Negiyose B'Shas Nsiyose. However, ve'eni Matame Le'Odam V'Le Kli Cheres. Why not Kli Cheres? Shekola Matame Odam, Matame Kli Cheres. V'chol she'eni Matame Odam, eni Matame Kli Cheres. So that's the rule. The rule is that if a person touches either the Zov, from the Zov to the Zova, to the Nida, to the Yildes, to the Reik, to the Dam Nida, to the Ziva, all of these things which are Avatoma, so they are all Matame Bichiburin. They're Matame Bichiburin, Sai by Negea, Sai by Nese. Masha'inka by Merkav we learned, by Merkav, you only metame b'chiburim b'noise and not b'negea. Hine l'madavta shekol tomei shenamer b'yechabes b'godov is areze metame b'godim sheyiga behem kol zman shalei pirish b'metamav. So when it says yechabes b'godov, it means that he's all the b'godim which are touching him. If a person is wearing two pieces of clothes and the upper layer of clothes is really not touching him, so they don't become tomei. It's only the begodim which are actually touching his body. Areze metame b'godim sheyiga behem. So they also become a rishon l'tuma, just like he becomes a rishon l'tuma. And also matar mishar kelim kibgodim, and he's matami other kelim if he's touching, let's say, a cup or whatever, while he is touching this zov or the zova, or he's carrying the zova. So he's matami other kelim kibgodim, chutz mikli cheres, except for kli cheres, she'eni matami le'odam v'le kli cheres. This person that's being negeya in these obvious atumas, he can't be metame, not an adam and not a kli cheres. He himself is a rishon l'tuma. He can't convey this tuma not to an adam and not to a kli cheres. Afal pish adayin lepirish. That's when so we have a tummy which says yichabes b'godov. Yichabes b'godov means that any beggar that he's touching or any keli that he's touching, while he is mechuber to the tuma, either mechuber by maga or mechuber through masa, depending where it says yichabes b'godov, so they become tummy, they become a rishon l'tuma. However, v'chol tummy shalei never be yichabes b'godov. a tummy which doesn't say Yechabes Begadim, Harei Achalei Pirish Ka'acha Shepirish. While he's touching the tummy, he has the same din as after he detached himself from the tummy. She'enim Metame Begadim, Mipnei Shu Vlad. He's a Rishon L'Tumah, and this musig of him being able to convey the tumah from the thing he's touching to the beggar doesn't exist, that because it doesn't say Yechabes Begadim. He obviously is not Metabe Adam Klicheres, because even a Keli, which on that you say Yechabes Begadim, is also not Metabe Adam Klicheres. Lefichach, so comes out the Maskon Hanigeh B'Merkav, someone that touches the Merkav, a third person touches a Meshav, so he's Metabe Begadim and the Kelim which he's touching while he's touching the Meshav or the Meshav or the Mishkav. Masha'en Kela, someone that's touching the Merkav, Eini Metame Begadim Mishas Magoy. However, Vanois is a Merkav, so then it's Metame Begadim Mishas Nisiyosek Meshabiyan. So it's very clear. So there's a din of Thomas Mishkav, there's a din of Thomas Meshav, and din of Thomas Merkav. Mishkav and Meshav are Metame the Adam to be Metame his Begadim B'Shas Saib Shas Magoy and Shas B'Sas being Noise. Masha'ekin Merkav is Metame Adam L'Tame Begadim while you're being Noise the Merkav, but not while you're being Nigeh B'Merkav. Halacha Gimel. Kol HaKelim sheyinosu l'maylam and Azov, that's being carried by the Zov. So this is what Mechudish Dekadim B'Negeh Azov and on all the other four as well. Kol HaKelim sheyinosu l'maylam and Azov, Heima Nekroim Madof. They are considered Madof literally means a shelf. They're like on top of the Zov. They're lying on top of the Zov. Vehein kulam kikelim shunigebem. They all have the din of the kelim shunigebem shem rishon l'tumah. So again, a Zov is an avatuma, and when he touches someone, he becomes a rishon l'tumah. When a Zov sits on something, Mishkav and Merkav, so Mishkav and Merkav become an avatuma. When a Zov touches something, whether it's on top of him or under him, but he's not sitting on it, so then the din is that it becomes a rishon l'tumah. Ve'ena metame, so a rishon l'tumah is not metame li'adam v'lekelim. Avol metame echol and mashkin. But something that's on top of the Zov has a din that it's a rishon l'tumah metame echol and mashkin. Now minatera, the only thing that comes tummy from the Zov, something that touches a Zov. The fact that it's lying on top of a Zov is not really a tumah minatera. There's no tumas madaf minatera. So really what should be is that the first thing that touches the Zov becomes a rishon l'tumah, and anything that's on top of that is not a tummy because unless it's echol and mashkin. But a rishon l'tumah can't be metame kelim, so memela anything on top of this first kelim shouldn't be tummy. But that's midrabanan. That's what he's saying. Avol metame and echol and mashkin kishar v'lodas atumas v'tumas madav midivrei. The whole musig of tumas madav is only a drabanan dikadin. So nachamol. So mishkav azov is tummy min atera becomes an avatuma. Something that the Zov touches becomes a rishon l'tumah, and it's also if it touches a person, and that person is touching kelim, so those kelim of Begadim, so they also become a rishon l'tumah. That's the din of a Zov, and then there's a new din that's called madaf azov, that something is lying on top of the Zov. So be'emes min atera, only something that's touching the Zov becomes a rishon l'tumah that can be matama echol and mashkin and not Begadim. Masha'enkim midrabanan, something that's lying on top of the Zov, even though it's not touching the Zov, also has a din of a rishon l'tumah, but that tumah is only midrabanan. Halacha dalad hazov v'azov v'anida v'yeledes v'ametzeres shemesu is harei hein metamen mishkav umerkav acher misoson kishahoyu kshenchaim achiyim kabosel. Even though be'emes menatera, so the musig of mishkav umerkav is only bechayim. When a person dies, so there's no musig of tumas mishkav umeshav. But midrabon they instituted that even if a person dies until yima kabosel, he should still be matame mishkav umeshav. So any mishkav umeshav that under him has a din of mishkav umeshav of a metzera. And betumazu midivreya, because gzeira shemi is aleph echad mielu v'yidamu shemes and be'emes v'adayin lemes. So they'll think that there's no tumas mishkav umeshav because he was a mess, and lepel there was a tumas mishkav umeshav. So therefore they instituted that even if he was mess taka, but he was taka mess, so nevertheless he should have a din of tumas mishkav umeshav until yima kabos. Now nimtza mishkave, so comes out the mishkave merkave shel achra misa is avtuma shel very safe. Mitzadin derabbanon minatera is not an avatuma. Minatera is not an avatuma, but the fact that midrabbanon he has a din of a mishkav a merkav hazov, even though this zov was a mess, and mameli has a din of an avatum. Now obviously you have to be talking about an atzir where he's not an avatuma mitzad them that he's an oil mess or a tumas mess. Because then he would be avatuma mitzad tumas mes. So you have to have the heichatimsa where mitzad tumas mes he's not an avatuma, and he's only avatuma because mishkav umerkav hazov, And we're saying that even though Be'emes he's not a Mishkav Umerkav Hazov, because the Zov died, but nevertheless, Midrabanan he has a din of Mishkav Umerkav Hazov. That's talking about a Yid that died. So we have Midrabanan, he has a din of Mishkav Umerkav Hazov. Avol Nochri Shemes, if it's a Nochri that died, so Ein Eisa Mishkav, Sharek Shulchai, Ein Metam El Devreim, K'mei Shebiyanu. There's no musig really of a Zov, a Goy that should be a Zov. There's no musig of Tumah by a Goy. A Tumah can only be by Yisrael. The musig that a Goy has a din of a Zov is only a din d'Rabbanan. So that din d'Rabbanan wasn't Nimsha. The Chazal didn't institute that the Goy, when he dies, should also be Metami, Mishkav Umoshav as a Zov. Halacha Hei. Kol Mokim, Sha'ata Shemea Tumas Mishkav Umerkav. When you hear the word Tumas Mishkav Umerkav, Eine Sheyiga Hatome B'Mishkav Ibemerkav K'sheyinose Aleim. It doesn't mean that the Tomei actually touched the Mishkav Umerkav. El Afilo Hoyo Avonim Gedelis L'Mailim and Akeli Osi L'Mishkav Umerkav. You have a bed, which is Akeli, which is Osi L'Mishkav Umerkav, or a mat. And now you have on top of this Keli, you have Avonim Gedelis. And Venisa Hazov Alo Avonim L'Maila. And Lepel, the Zov was being carried on these Avonim L'Maila. Is nevertheless, so the l'chura between the Mishkav and the Meshav and the Zov, there's Avonim Gedelis, which are not Mekabel Tumah. Nevertheless, Nitma HaMishkav HaMerkav V'nasa Avatuma. And the Mishkav HaMerkav becomes Tumah because he's a Mishkav HaMerkav HaZov. The fact that the Zov is lying on him, that causes the Tumah on the Mishkav HaMerkav. Afilu Elef Mishkav HaMerkav Zel L'mayla Mizeh and Ve'evan Ala Elyon. There's 1,000 layers of different kalim of Mishkav HaMerkav, and on top of them there's an Evan. V'yoshev echad mimetami Mishkav HaMeshav l'mayla min Evan is nitmu akel. So all of them become tamei. V'echad ha-Mishkav ha-negeh ba'oretz, ha-Mishkav shel mayla, im noga b'bishas shchivas. It all is the same. It makes no difference. There's no difference in the madregas hatuma, whether it's all the way on the bottom, all the way on the bottom, or it's all the way on top. We're talking about there's 1,000 Mishkav HaMeshav, and he's actually touching it. Kol echad mem avatuma. They're all avatuma. They're avatuma because of the din of Mishkav. The fact that he's negeh, as we said, negeh would only make a rishon. Over here he's an avatuma because he's a Mishkav, and the Mishkav makes no difference if he's on top or on the bottom. V'chein im hoya echad memetami Mishkav lemata ve'evan al gabav. Just like we're saying negeh Mishkav HaMeshav, there was a deraisa dikadin that a Mishkav HaMeshav, no matter how many Mishkav HaMeshavs there are, so all of them are Tomei, Tumas, they become an Avatumah, regardless of how many there are. So the same thing that I'm saying, Benegeh, Tumas Madav. We learned before that there's a Musa called Tumas Madav, which means something that's lying on top of a Zov becomes Tomei, or Rishul the Tumah, even if it's not touching the Zov. It says, V'cheinim hoya echad mimetami Mishkav l'mata. Those that are Metami Mishkav, which means the Zov v'chaverov. And they were lemata, and ve'evan al gabav, and on top of them was an evan, and ve'echlun mashkin ve'kelim ve'odem al gabi evan, and there were various things on top of this evan. Zel l'mayla b'zel, one was on top of the other. The echlun on top of the mashkin, on top of the kelim, on top of the odem, which on top of the kelim, which on top of the evan, is kulan tmeim. They all become tamei, and they all become a rishon l'tumah. They become a rishon tumah. That's the din of madaf, of the zov. Anything that's lying on top of the zov, even though it's not touching the Zov, becomes a Rishon L'Tumah. Ve'echad keli oichel eimashkei adam hanegeh b'Zov. The same din would apply. Say if something is touching the Zov, a keli oichel eimashkei adam shulamayla le'evan shal gabav. Hakel v'lad atumah. But it's not mamish the same, because lepel, if you're negeh b'Zov, so then you become a Rishon L'Tumah min HaTeira. Mashenkin, if you're on top of, if you're not negeh b'Zov, it's just a madaf hazov, so then you become a Rishon L'Tumah Midrabanan. L'chor the Pashas, the Hakel of Vlad HaTumah, they're the same. They're Vlad HaTumah, but it's not the same level of Vlad HaTumah. And also ve'enim metame le adam lekelim. None of these things that are on top of the Zov are metame adam lekelim. Chutz miha adam shal gabi azov. If you have a person that's lying on top of the Zov and he's touching the Zov, sha'ad shali pirish mimatamov. While he's late pirish mimatamav is mitami shar kelim k'misha b'yarnu. So as we said before, that someone that touches a zov, and while he's touching the zov, he's touching other kelim. So those kelim also become a rishon l'tumah. He's a rishon l'tumah, and those kelim also are rishon l'tumah. And that din is only by adam. If a keli touches a zov, and the keli touches another keli, there's no musig of conveying the tumah. That's din is a special din. If an adam is negeh b'zov and al derech zeh, all those other things which the Rambam said before, which the Zav and the Nida and the the Seis and the Damanida, and the Zevis Zov, and the Reik, and the Shechvazari, all these things, if you touch them, or the Mishkav Umoshav, so if you touch them, and then while that you're touching another Keli, so they become tummy. Halacha Vov. Now there's a din called Mishkav Umoshav, and that din is that if you're lying or sitting on this Mishkav Umoshav, so the Zov or the Chaverav are sitting on the Mishkav Umoshav, so they become an Avatuma. Now Mishkav Umoshav means a Keli which is miyuchid for Mishkav Umoshav. Something which is not miyuchid for Mishkav Umoshav is not mekabel tumah of Mishkav Umoshav. Ha'oichlin, v'hamashkin, v'hakelim she'enam asuyim leila Mishkav v'leila Umoshav v'leila Merkav, shehoyu lamata, they were under the Zov, and v'yoshev hazov u'kiyetzebe aleim l'mayla, the Zov u'kiyetzebe means his v'chaverov. They sat on top, and they're being supported by oichel or mashka or kelim which are not asuyim l'Mishkav Umoshav. V'lei nogu b'hem, and they didn't touch it. Is kulam teirim. The kulam is teirim because lepel, the din of Mishkav Umoshav is only a keli which is miyuchel the Mishkav Umoshav. Mashenken eichel or mashkin, which is obviously not a keli, or a keli which is not miyuchel the Mishkav Umoshav, is not mekabel tumas Mishkav Umoshav. Mele, it's not mekabel any tumah because there's no musig of a keli being noiseus azov. We mentioned before the musig of noiseus azov is only a din by a adam. However, avalim hoya adam lamata. If there was a person lamata and v'hazov lamayla, and there's a zov on top of the adam, aval pishayin negebe. Even though lepel the zov is not touching this adam, the zov is on top of the adam, but he's not touching him. Is areza tamim mishum nesav zov, because the zov is the chmetami, and memela he's carrying the zov. Kechol nesi davar shemetami b'masa. Just carrying anything which is metami b'masa. Shahanese rishon l'tumah. The person that's noisy is a rishon l'tumah. Just like if a person is a noisy nevela. So nevela is the chmetam b'masa, so is a rishon l'tumah. He becomes a rishon l'tumah. So al der if you know you say it's a zov, as a din of touching the zov, and memela you become a rishon l'tumah. Holam adata shekol sheyiyah l'mayla min azov. Anything that's on top of the zov is tummy. Bein adam, bein kelim hasuyin l'mishkav l'meishav l'merkav, bein shar kol hakelim, bein eichlin, bein mashkin, hakel rishon l'tumah. Anything that's lying on top of the zov, there's no agbolas. Anything that's lying on top of the zov is a rishon l'tumah. It doesn't have to be something specially roy. It doesn't have to be a keli. It could be Michael or Mashke. It doesn't have to be a keli roy l'mishkav l'meishav. It's all a rishon l'tumah. And again, it's a rishon l'tumah with rabbanim. However, v'chol sheyeh l'matam and azov, something that's l'matam and azov v'leiyiga based Torah, chutz min ha'adam. Ha'adam is tamei als din of noisna, it's mishkav l'meishav. He's tamei als din noiseis azov. He's not roy l'mishkav l'meishav. So male, he's tamei als din noiseis azov. Oy, and there's another one of a keli ha'asui l'mishkav l'meishav l'merkav. So then that keli also becomes tamei. Elisha adam rishon. When a person is noiseis azov, an adam which is under the zov, and he's noiseis azov, so he becomes a rishon l'tumah because noiseis azov is the same thing like negeh bezov. Again, it's only by adam, but an adam noiseis azov is like his negeh bezov. Mainly becomes a rishon l'tumah. However, v'akelim hasuyin l'mishkav l'moishav l'mishkav l'merkav, so they become an avatuma. They don't only become a rishon l'tumah; they become an avatuma. Kimei shebiyan.